right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, I'll start off with a trigger warning. This is probably the most similar segment to cable news I will ever do in my life. And given how much I despise the mainstream media, cable news in general, and the entire format, it will probably convey to you how important I think that this issue actually is. That issue is the way the communication from the White House about President Trump's health, how it's emblematic of how this administration has generally handled this COVID-19 pandemic from the beginning, and how ultimately one of the easiest elections in modern history is being blown for no reason. And again, let me reiterate. Unlike most people in the media and in Hollywood, I want Trump to be better. It's horrific for the country and the world to have the leader of the free world waylaid by a deadly virus. And more importantly, we need him actually out on the campaign trail. It's because I take this issue so seriously, I am appalled and frankly outraged at how completely insane the communication from the White House surrounding Trump's health has been since we found out that he was diagnosed with coronavirus. Saturday is a day that can only be described as a complete and total shit show. The day before, the world was frankly stunned as the news broke that Trump was ill enough that he had decided to spend the next several days at the presidential suite at Walter Reed Medical Center. He put out a video where he appeared okay. But speculation was rampant. How sick should a commander-in-chief actually have to be to need to go to the hospital? Not an exaggeration to say. The entire world is watching. The stakes are very high for the president's doctor during his first briefing. And then this happened.
Just 72 hours into the diagnosis now.
He's receiving no, he has not received any supplemental oxygen?
He's not on oxygen right now, that's right.
He has not received any at all?
He's not needed any this morning, today at all. That's right.
Immediately, everyone started freaking out. What? 72 hours ago from when the doctor was speaking? So he means that the Trump was diagnosed on Wednesday, and then he knowingly traveled and interacted with hundreds of people while positive? And as far as the supplemental oxygen is concerned, it seems obvious at some point the president had been on supplemental oxygen, and the doctor just didn't want to say? Why? Nobody would begrudge him for that. It's probably happened to millions of Americans at this point. By trying to avoid panic, they actually stoked confusion, which is like a cancer in the middle of a crisis. Eventually, the doctor clarified the timeline, saying he really meant at the time that he was speaking that they were not at the third day of diagnosis, but what came after is what really threw everything to real chaos. The White House delivered an unnamed statement to the press pool and distributed it to the entire media, saying, quote, "The president's vitals over the last 24 hours were very concerning, and the next 48 hours will be critical in terms of his care. We're still not on a clear path to full recovery." What? This is right after a doctor said that the president was doing well and there wasn't all that much to worry about. I mean, do you all know what a, quote, clear path to full recovery is? It's literally life or death. It's kind of a binary choice. After a lot of hand-wringing about whether to even believe the source, the White House chief of staff came out and put his name to that statement. But the interim hours are a period where you have a doctor saying one thing, then an anonymous White House official saying actually the president's condition is dire. And somehow it gets even worse because after Meadows came out of the shadow and he put his name to that quote, he started revealing older lies about the president's health that was told the previous day during an appearance on Fox News late Saturday. Let's take a listen.
The biggest thing that we see is that with no fever now, and with him doing really well with his oxygen saturation levels, we yesterday morning we were real concerned with that. You know, he had a fever, and his blood oxygen level had dropped rapidly.
Wait, what? So according to the White House chief of staff, on Friday, the president had a fever and rapidly dropping oxygen levels. The implication being he was on supplemental oxygen. Again, you have the White House chief of staff using the words, "We were real concerned." But worse, on Friday, when all that was actually happening, the official line from the White House was that the president had, quote, mild symptoms and was resting comfortably. It's just brazenly admitting that they lied whenever it mattered. And look, again, this is not a joke. It doesn't matter how you feel about the president. He is the president. He's the leader of our country, the commander of our military, the most powerful person on earth. If he's sick, that's okay. Presidents get sick, especially in the middle of a pandemic. But lying to us about his health and trying to spin things, it makes it so that when the news eventually does get good about his health, rampant conspiracy theories may follow. Who knows what to believe? And finally, as if it really, really could not get worse. Sunday, when the president's doctors faced the news media again, he essentially admitted he downplayed the seriousness of Trump's condition because he didn't want to, quote, give any information that might steer the course of the illness in another direction. I'm not making this up. Let's take a listen.
It's a good question.
Thank you.
I was trying to reflect the upbeat attitude that the team, the president, that his course of illness has had. Didn't want to give any information that might steer the course of illness in another direction, and in doing so, it came off that we were trying to hide something, which wasn't necessarily true.
All this chaos is essentially an in-kind donation to the Joe Biden campaign. I reiterate here, not a person on earth would hold it against Trump for being sick. Boris Johnson was literally in the ICU, for God's sake. He almost died, and he beat the virus. But the lies and the incompetence and the spinning remind people once again what's happening with the president's health is essentially what happened in the dog days of early February and in April. And when the Republican Party line decided to say, screw the virus, and if we just talk in a more upbeat tone, that things might go away. There's been a lot of hypocrisy from the Democrats and the media on this front, and we have called it out here every single time that has happened. But the tone set from the top has been this bumbling idiocy for months, and now it's what has made millions of Americans say, you know what, I'm sick of this shit. In normal times, a presidential illness would be highly correlated with a large bump in approval. But these aren't normal times. And this is one of the few instances where Trump's refusal to be a normal president is majorly coming back to hurt him. All of this is a tragedy. None of this should be a referendum election. It should be a choice election. America actually deserves a litigation over what the future of our country should look like. Instead, people just want less chaos. And I just wish they knew how bitter of an aftertaste that that's going to come with come November. And that's actually, I think, the thing that bothers me the most about all of this. This is all in-kind donation to Joe Biden. There's like this craziness going on your television, then the Trump, the ride with the supporters, and then cable news, and all anybody can focus on, the doctor and the spinning, and all anybody wants, and this is, I've said this before, they'll be like, I just want normal times, man. That's all, the things people yearn for. And he's making it so that it's such an easy layup for Joe Biden, and it doesn't have to be this way. Joe Biden sucks. He can barely speak, and he's old, and he doesn't have any new ideas. It's the easiest thing that you could possibly do to take this man down, and somehow they're blowing it. I just don't get it.
It's incredible. I mean, Joe Biden waltzed through the Democratic primary. Obama moved the chess pieces and handed it to him. Basically, the media handed it to him. And now, I mean, he's barely had to campaign.
He's not even out there. I don't even know what he's doing
a lot of
today.
Fundraising, but there hasn't, they've really scaled back. They say because of the pandemic. I think, frankly, it's been a smart strategy to just let the president do his thing. But the events of this weekend, you're exactly right. They just serve to remind people of the worst parts of this president.
Yeah.
The parts of this president that they like the absolute least were all manifestly on display. The confusion, the chaos, the misleading, the obvious attempt to create an image that's probably at odds with reality, all of that gaslighting. It's what people are so exhausted by and so sick of, especially during these times when there's real problems to deal with. And all you want is someone who's going to be straight up with you. Look, people can handle, if the president is really sick, they can handle that.
They really can.
And wish him well, right? Most people would feel that way. And even as they blame him, rightfully so, for not being cautious and essentially playing with fire this entire time and predictably ultimately getting burned, of course they would ultimately wish him well. But because you're getting all of this misinformation and, you're being told one thing and then you're immediately being told something else, it's total rank incompetence. Was it 72 hours? Was it 48 hours? Having to clean all of this up. It actually plays into the conspiracy theorizing and makes people think the absolute worst. So if your goal was to make people think that the president is doing pretty well and on track to recovery, even if that is just your goal, you are completely undermining that goal, because everyone is assuming if you're creating this elaborate cover-up, there must be something really bad there.
Exactly.
Now, what we've actually seen in the Trump administration is oftentimes they create an elaborate cover-up when there actually isn't that much there. I mean, you think about Russiagate.
I think that's probably the case.
Part of why everyone bought in so hard to Russiagate, and he's like Putin's puppet and all of this, is because they lied so much and tried to hide so many things and marched Mike Pence out there in the Sunday shows to tell blatant lies. Like, all of those things created this sense of, my God, it's a massive cover-up, so there must be something really huge there. It's a similar dynamic here where it's hard to separate out like the lies and the malevolence from the just rank incompetence and really try to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, no, you just can't. You never know. And again, I actually think the truth is probably like Trump was pretty sick. I think he seems to be getting better. He's been tweeted like 70 times this morning, so that's how you know he's really back.
That was actually on Friday. One of the cues to me that things weren't going well is he didn't tweet at all. I was like, whoa.
He's on Twitter. I'm sure he'll be calling into Fox by the end of the day. Okay, great. I mean, and that's the thing. That's all anybody needs to know. If the president was ill for 2 days, who would begrudge him? Would you really begrudge him? I don't think so. Most Americans would say, I hope the man gets better. Let's get him back out on the campaign trail. Let's have a real choice election of 2020. And instead, Joe Biden, I mean, who the hell knows what Joe Biden is doing? I don't even know where the guy is today. I bet he'll call a lid at like 9 a.m. or something like that. Again and again and again. It's becoming a referendum election. And as you said, this is the most important thing. The Trump people get confused all the time. People don't love the chaos. They don't love the chaos. Right. They do like the freak out by the establishment, right? Mm-hmm. That's it. The best parts of Trump are who he drives crazy. But what they like even more, and especially in the middle of a pandemic, is competence. He truly lost the people whenever he showed incompetence in an area that deeply matters to them.
That's it.
That's actually, it's like, it has to line up with affects you in your life, aka the pandemic, which rules your entire life, and how somebody's handling it. If he's like incompetent or whatever, whenever it comes to an order and then NATO or whatever, and then the media is like freaking out about that, that doesn't touch you and doesn't touch your life. But on this one, it does, and that's why people are pissed.
That's it. If it's chaos just in the service of like triggering the media and other political elites or whatever, people love that. I mean, a lot of people are here for that. But when it's chaos that actually impacts your ability to live your life in a like safe and fruitful manner, that people are not ultimately going to abide. And actually, that's what I'm going to talk about on my radar.
There we go. All right, I'm looking forward to your radar next, Crystal.